And welcome to Phoenix Files. This is a live interview series where everyday people share extraordinary transformations, their struggles, their breakthroughs, and the fire that forged them. We talk about everyday people, but I've got to say, the people that come for the interviews, they are not ordinary by any means. And today's guest is exactly the same. I've met Lee online only, but I've got to say what I've seen in Lee has just been exceptional. Lee, how's it, buddy?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Um, yeah, this is only the second time that I've been on the other side of a podcast, so I'm still a little bit nervous because you know I tend to ask do what you're doing in a similar way, but it's different when you're on the other side, right? And you're the one who's got to answer the questions.
It is a bit different. Still gets me nervous. I've been doing it a long time. I still get nervous. But even being in the driving seat, I think there's still a little bit of apprehension
Hmm.
and nervousness that goes with all of that. Lee, you want to start us off just with a snapshot, who you are, background, where you've come from, where you're at, so we've got an idea of who Lee is.
So I live in North Wales, 37. I'm 38 in August. Come from a very small town, just on the northeast coast of Wales. Very rural area. There's a lot of small towns plotted around, a lot of castles. There's a hell of a lot of castles along the coastline. Very close to the English border, so we're not full Welsh as they say. Even though I was born in Wales. If you can't speak fluent Welsh, then they sort of look at you a bit of an alien. I'm sort of 60% fluent in Welsh. It's
Okay.
a very aged, dying language, I think.
Yes.
The further we get into the future, the less people are speaking it. But
Yes.
yeah, I'm proud Welshman, proud to be Welsh. Grew up in a local, just a normal council estate as such. Very lower class living, but there was beauty in it. It was one of them back in the day in the early '90s. You could go into each other's houses, sit down, the mothers would feed you. You could play in each other's bedrooms, and it was like one big community. Um,
Yes.
something that I don't really see much of these days, which is sad. But
Yes.
yeah, my childhood, as far as friendship goes, was a good one. Um,
Yeah.
family, not so much. I mean, we can go into that as we go along with the podcast. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've got two children. My son's 17, Georgie. My
Okay.
daughter's 13, Rosalie. Um,
Wow.
I was married, got divorced, and I've been with my girlfriend for just over 2 years, and
Okay.
it's been the best 2 years of my life, and this is, I guess, why me and you were speaking today.
Yes.
Been beautiful.
Love it. Like it. I like it. So, what I want to do, Lee, is just create a little bit of a snapshot of life before and then transformation and life. I don't want to say after transformation, but because that transformation is still in progress, but a life after the or after the decision kind of thing. There was a moment that there was a decision. If you were to describe your life in 3 words before change, what 3 words would you slap onto?
Before my change, so when I was in addiction, the three words that come to mind for me was pain, chaotic, and no love.
Sure.
So that's how I feel. That's how I felt.
Yeah, yeah. That's quite a bleak picture there. Quite a bleak picture. And how much of that, just for my own understanding, Lee, how much of that is it the environment? Is it the bleakness in the environment, being in the rural setting, that introduced you to addiction?
Um, I guess the only way to explain that is if I tell you. Um, if I tell you the story. Um,
Yeah.
and it starts, if you've got the time, I'll start from when I was a child. So my
Yeah.
parents split up before I was born.
Oh my
Father
goodness.
was never around. He was he was full of broken promises my whole life. I always looked at my father as this. I don't want to say hero because he never was. This
Yeah.
sort of pillar of strength, this figure of strength. Because I don't know if you've seen. Well, you would have seen the films Rocky.
Yes.
Is that why is that echoing? Oh, that's my phone. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Sorry, that was my
Yeah.
phone.
No problem.
Yeah. So I seen my father as a pillar of strength. He was a big, strong guy. He could fight. He looked like Rocky from the first Rocky film, but he didn't know how to be a father. And unfortunately for me, he wasn't a big part of my life.
Yeah.
Every weekend, the biggest memory I have of my father, the two things that stick out in my mind was fighting with my mother all the time. And he'd always say to me, I'll come down on Saturday and I'll take you out. He was a really good footballer, my dad.
Okay.
And we'd go and play football, but he never would. I'd end up sitting and waiting in the window, and I'd wait there from 9 o'clock in the morning until 7, 8 o'clock at night, sit in the window all day and all night waiting for him. And he'd never turn up. And that was something that happened every weekend. Um, so that, there was the emotional association to abandonment, I guess, growing up. Why wasn't my dad around? Why didn't he love me? Things like this. And then on the other hand, there was a lot of physical violence from my mother. She used me as a tool to get at my father. She'd make me walk. I've got a younger brother. He's 4 years younger than me, so I'd have to walk to the next village where my father lives, which is 2.5 miles down the road. And she'd make me walk there. And I must have been 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. She'd make me walk there with my brother in the buggy, and we'd have to sit in the pubs all day waiting for him, waiting for him to come around with his friends or with a woman, and then I'd have to phone my mother. She'd come down. They'd have a big row and an argument or a fight, um, and that was something that I dealt with for probably my whole childhood, um, all the way through. You know, up until I was probably 12, 13 years old. That was a regular occurrence for me. The one thing, obviously, because my father would take violence out on her, or they'd have an argument, they'd row, and she'd take it out on me. And
Yeah.
I was terrified of my mother. I was absolutely terrified of her.
Jeez.
Um, some of the some of the things she did, I sort of played down for a long, long time,
Yeah.
and it still hurts. It still hurts me now thinking
Yeah.
about them. But the fact of the matter is, if I did that to one of my children now, I'd be in jail.
Yeah.
He broke
Yeah.
my nose. She used to make me eat bars of soap. She'd use weapons on me quite a lot.
So,
She stabbed me when I was 9 it was with a butter knife, hitting me in the chest with a butter knife. But
oh God.
to a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, that butter knife looks like a samurai sword. And
Yeah.
it was just, it was, I think a lot of that's where a lot of my anxiety comes from, and the lack of self love, because
Yeah.
the two most important people in my life who were supposed to love me didn't make me feel loved. They made me feel pain and sadness. Uh,
Yeah.
and it, if it wasn't for my grandparents, I'd have probably been worse than what I was, because they showed me love and affection and what it was like to be parented properly with kindness. Um, they
Okay.
both passed.
Yeah. No, that is not a great environment to raise a child. That's for sure. Um, and what I I sometimes I think I've sat and looked at these questions and think they're okay to ask, but then when you get to somebody that is went through abuse and all the rest of it, to ask these kinds of questions, sometimes I think to myself, geez, we're really pushing the envelope here. What do you think was the single moment, rock bottom for you in your childhood?
The rock bottom in my childhood. The lowest time in my childhood was when um, the lowest moment of my life when I thought, why doesn't my mother even love me, was when she used to kick me out the house in the middle of the night. And I was a good kid, you know, I was a very good
Yeah.
kid. I'd spent a lot of time on my own. Isolation was something I felt comfortable with since I was 6 and 7 years old. She used
Yeah.
to lock me in my bedroom. I mean, she'd break the door, handle off the door, and so I couldn't get out of my bedroom. She'd leave me there all day. The lowest point for me, I remember, was looking up um, from the front garden where she picked me out in the middle of the night. I was probably 10, and she picked me out into the garden in nothing but my boxer shorts, and she was laughing at me out of the bedroom window. Um, and that was the lowest point for me because I thought, you know, what have I done? What have I done wrong? Why why is this happening to me? Um,
Yeah. And the kind of
um,
lack of self-love that comes from that is almost understandable, right? Almost
mm,
justifiable.
yeah, but
And when did you start
I'm
using?
so I was introduced through my environment, basically through my friends, going out and socializing and things like this when I was 17. My friend, we were actually going for an Indian. We were going for some food, and he said to me, "Try this." I'd never done it before. I wasn't really one for smoking cannabis and things like that. And I smoked cigarettes, but I wasn't really a massive drinker all through my teens. I wasn't somebody who drank a massive amount.
Yeah.
But he introduced me to it, and it made me feel amazing. I'm not going to lie, it did.
Yeah.
And that was the starting point for me. And you know, over the next 20 years, it just became a part of who I was. It became a part of my identity. It was normal.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, I had my son when I was 19. I had my daughter when I was 23. And unfortunately, I carried on. You know, because I thought it was normal. Um,
Yeah.
I was a fantastic dad. I am a fantastic father. Nobody can ever take that away from me.
Yeah.
But I did. You know, there was times where I'd be hungover or depressed in bed, and they'd want my attention, and unfortunately, I wouldn't give it to them because I was in addiction.
Yeah.
You know,
You weren't
I
able to.
had the sorry,
You weren't able to.
yeah, I you know, we had the holidays and the birthday parties and quality time. There was a lot of quality time, but you know, as a man who's I'm 38 nearly, there was nowhere near enough of my time given
Yeah.
to them.
Living
And
that kind of life, Lee, I mean, this is not about going into the specifics. Looking back at it in when you were in that situation, is it, did you regard it as this is normal? This is acceptable because that's what life is?
well, I think because of the fact that obviously my father did it, my father was a drug addict. Because he did it, all my friends did it, their fathers did it, uh, their mothers did it. You know, I'm not going to go into detail on
Yeah.
anybody that, but you know, everybody did it,
Yeah.
everybody, and that's why for me it was normal. It started, it'd start, you just do it on a Friday, then it'd be Friday and Saturday, then it'd be Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then it became again became a part of me and who I was. I started selling it at a very small level, only minuscule level, but I'd sell it to my friends so I could get mine for nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and it just became a part of who I was. I thought it was cool. You know, you get recognition, you get reward, you get power, you get all these things that don't really mean nothing in that world. You know.
Yeah. It's quite hollow at the end of the day. Also, I asked that question because for a lot of people, when they're in it, I keep kicking this table. I asked the question because when people are in it, there is that sense that, sense that this isn't normal, and part of their getting out of it is that there's this maybe an unconscious search or questioning just about having something better, exploring something different. This is not the norm. I shouldn't be doing this. How do I get out of this? Was there any of that for you?
No, there was none of that for probably 19 years. None of it. I thought this was the way I'm supposed to always live my life. This is the way I will always be. I will never be anything more. I'll never be anything different. I'm going to live this way forever, and then I'm going to die. That was literally the way I lived for um, 19 years because, again, that's my grandfather worked his whole life, loved a drink, the nicest guy I've ever met in my life, but he worked his whole life in a job. He was worked on the railways and then he retired and died. And I guess because that's the type of life that we all live around here. We live a life where we work in jobs that we hate, we become old drunks and die. That's
Yep.
that's literally, for 60, 70, 80% of the people around there, that's how we live our lives. And it was only
Yep.
until 2 years ago that I learned to realize, well, not even 2 years ago, probably 12 months ago, that I realized something needs to change because I'm going to end up dead otherwise.
So that is kind of the follow-up question. At what point did you realize there was change? So having spent some time in your lives, um, I know, but share that with us. What was the moment that made you realize something's got to change, something's got to give?
So it's a difficult one for me because everybody says you've got to hit rock bottom, and then the only way is up, right? I hit rock bottom and carried on. That's the most terrifying part. I
Yeah,
hit rock bottom and carried on doing the same thing.
yeah,
So I don't like using the word rock bottom or the terminology because people say the only way is up from rock bottom. That's not true.
yeah,
People die. People get buried when they hit rock bottom. There's not
yeah,
only one way. And
yeah.
so it was so I'll go back 2 years ago. Just before I met my girlfriend, I was living with my father. I'd never lived with him before in my life, but unfortunately, I was home. I lost my house during COVID. My
Okay.
grandparents both passed away. I got divorced, all
Sorry.
within a very short space of time.
Yeah.
I had to sell my house. I bought my first house when I was 18.
Sure.
I had nothing. I didn't have I didn't have the man and woman who'd looked after me for all my life. I didn't have no house. The children had moved out. They live in Liverpool now, which is about an hour away. And I had nowhere to go, so it was either I'm homeless or I've got to go and live with my father, which was very, very difficult because at the time I held a lot of anger and resentment towards him. Um, and just by living with him, the smells that I remembered when I was a kid, all these things had come back into my head because of the environment that I was having to live in at the time.
Yeah.
And I just started using probably £1,000 a day on cocaine.
Yeah.
Um, and they got to the point where I was taking Zopiclone tablets, sleeping tablets. I was taking them like Skittles one day. And I think I probably took, while I was taking cocaine, this was as well, I was drinking, taking sleeping tablets and taking cocaine.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I just had this thing in my head where I just thought, just keep taking them, just keep going, one after another. And I did. And I sat there for the best part of 15 to 18 hours in the dark with no TV on, with just the light off my phone, drinking, using, smoking, taking sleeping tablets. And I just carried on until my body decided I can't do this no more. And I remember I stood up and there was blood coming out of my eyes, coming out of my nose, coming out of my ears. And I just collapsed and I thought, this is it. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And honestly, I genuinely didn't care. There were, I had a knife next to the bed anyway, so it was going to happen in one way, shape, or form. And I collapsed, and I thought, "This is it. I'm gonna die." And I woke up
Yeah.
well over 24, well over 24 hours later,
Yeah.
um, and I met my girlfriend about 3 or 4 days after that,
Yeah.
and it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And I've never really been a big believer of fate, um, But I believe somebody was looking at me that day saying, this guy needs help and we're going to help him. And my girlfriend came into my life. Um, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Probably didn't start it the way that I should have. I was still using, nowhere near as much. The severity had dropped massively,
Yeah.
but I was still using and I was still drinking. And
Sure.
she gave me the ultimatum in the end: you either carry on or you choose me or drugs. Simple as. And
Okay.
that was at the moment when I thought history is going to repeat itself here. And touch wood, I took the steps that I needed to take, and it's all been uphill since then.
I would normally ask, looking back, do you think you could recognize limiting beliefs? But listening to your story, I think looking back, it was the norm for you because of the lack of love, of care, of support, in terms of what was going on in the environment. How would that resonate with you?
Yeah, I mean, the words limiting belief and things like that. There was no
Yeah.
that never even entered my mind. It was 100%. It was limited to. It was tunnel vision. This is the only way that I am ever going to live my life, and that's
Yeah.
all I ever had. There was nothing else outside of what I could see uh,
Yeah.
up until last year. Now everything's changed.
Yeah. That is quite shocking, buddy. Quite shocking. And since then, is it your girlfriend that is leading the change in you? Is there a mentor? Is there a book? Is there a goal, an objective that you're pursuing? What is it that's keeping you on this track of healing and growth and developing and moving forward, kind of thing?
My childhood self, he deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes to the place where you are celebrating the childhood you, and just to say you are worth it, mate. You are worth it. Yeah.
I went to, I think I've told you this already. Oh. I went to this Master Your Mind event last year in just outside of sort of northern England, and there was about 400 or 500 people there, and we did this mindfulness exercise, and I'd never heard of mindfulness before, and meditation and breath work and this type of stuff. Anyway, there was about 400 people in this room. There was cage fighters, boxers, kickboxers. There was a room full of tough dudes. And this woman got up on stage and she took us through this process. And you'll know what I mean by this. I had an out of body experience. I really did. And I could see myself looking down on my body. And then I was outside of the building. Then I was in the clouds. And then she took me back to my childhood self.
Well.
And I was in my bedroom. I could smell the smells. I could even see the old movies and computer games that I'd have on the shelf. I could see the names. I could see the names. I could see the photos on the walls, everything.
Sure.
But my childhood self wasn't there. So he was. So if you looked out of my bedroom window, there was a castle, probably 300 meters across the road.
Hmm.
And my childhood self was stood next to there. So she said, run to him. So I started running to him. Um, and I give him a hug and I said to him, everything's going to be all right. I'll look after you now. And it's the most fucking powerful thing that I've ever experienced in my life. It's beautiful. It was.
Yep. Yep. Just to do that little bit of self love and recognize the path that you've walked, and embrace yourself and say you're going to be okay. It is. It's a powerful, powerful experience. It's a
And that
powerful
was probably the
experience.
first, it was probably the first real day where I came home and with a sense of purpose, with a sense of drive, passion, love, commitment, all these positive things that I'd never really looked at before, all of a sudden these emotions were flooding into my body like somebody was tipping cold water over my head, and
Yep.
it was like all these positive things were coming into me, and I was having all these ideas of what I can do, and it was crazy, man. And I just thought, I know I can make massive change because
Yep.
I don't want to say there's more than one Lee out there, but there's hundreds of thousands of people who have lived similar lives to what I've lived. And
Yep.
if I can do it, they can do it. And that's what I want to provide people with is the show them that we've all got that ability within us
Yep.
to prove ourselves right, prove our childhood selves right, that what we wanted when we were kids, we can achieve now as adults.
Yep. Yep. And that you are worth it. That is the thing kind of coming into this interview that I sitting in the back of my mind. A lot of people go through rehab, they come out of that kind of situation, and the focus is about making their own environment, circumstances better, sorting it for their own families, sorting it for their own relationships. You've not done that though. You've flipped that story and said, okay, how are we going to take this out? How are we going to take this to others? What is the drive for that? Where is that coming from? Why are you doing that?
Because there's too many people. I'll be honest with you, John. As you already know, there's too many people dying. There's too many people taking their own lives. There's too many people living lives that they don't want to live. Sad lives, unhappy lives. People who don't know how to deal with their emotions. People who don't understand that there is ways and possibilities with just a little bit of work that you can live better lives. And the fact of the matter is, this world is a difficult, sad, dark place if you allow it to be.
Yeah,
Again, these things that I've learned, perception. You know, it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but I lived a lot of 2021, 22, literally in the dark, in the night. And like I say to people now, the sun shines too bright in the morning to sit in the dark all night. And it's that beauty. Life's beautiful. Life is fucking beautiful.
love it.
Um, but unfortunately, almost all my generation of men, I'd say from the middle to lower class, we don't know how to deal with these things. We don't understand what emotional regulation is, or how to regulate the central nervous system, or how the brain works, or what addiction does to the brain. And all we don't know these things, and I believe it's down to me to let these people know. I really do. That's how I feel.
Love it. Love it. I got to agree with you. And you coming at this with experience, understanding, compassion, empathy. You know. So yeah. But so 2 year walk so far, Lee.
What? Sorry.
It's been a 2 year walk so far.
From the darkest time of my life, it's been just over 2 years. Yeah. Um, as far as being
And
sober, I don't really know. I'm not counting. I don't count the days since I'm
yeah,
sober. I
yeah.
don't bother with that. But
And
yeah, just over 2 years.
okay. And difficult times during the 2 years.
Yeah. A lot of mistakes made. A lot of well, you've heard the chapters that I've been reading out of my girlfriend's book.
Yes.
Um,
Very
really,
nice.
really powerful stuff.
Mm.
And unfortunately, she became an emotional punch bag for me. And I don't like using those. They're her words, so I'll use them with empathy and purpose. But
Yeah.
she she was my she was my teacher. For she showed me from an external point of view that I can be loved, and even when I fuck up, she'll love me. And I
Yeah.
did take advantage of that, but it was only when because I didn't understand what love was. I didn't understand that somebody could love me the way she was telling me she loved me. I didn't believe it. I didn't understand that a woman could love me the way she was loving me, and tried to push her away subconsciously, maybe,
Yeah.
um, because I was experiencing kindness and love and caring from a woman who should or could hate the world just as much as I do because, again,
Yeah.
not my place to go into, but she had a really difficult childhood herself.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
this woman was, I mean, her job, she's a district nurse. And she said to me, she said, I love being there for people in their last moments. And I was like, what? I said, that sounds crazy. And she was like, no, she said, I love being there to make sure that they're not feeling any pain, making sure that they feel love in abundance and all these things. And I
Wow.
was just like, how does this woman see the beauty of life in such a colourful way and I see the world in darkness?
Yeah.
She's taught me a lot. Honestly, she's taught me not only to love myself, but to learn how to love another human being in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the way you talk about the beauty of life. It's a phrase important to me in my own journey as well. The beauty of life, and I'm always talking about got to make our destination beautiful, and looking for the beauty within relationships, within circumstances, situations. So never mind the silver lining. I'm looking for the beauty. Um, there's been high points over the last 2 years. There's
Yeah,
been
some
beauty.
brilliant points. Yeah, there's been some amazing times. One of the highest points for me, because obviously I lived with my children for how old was Georgie? 13 years I lived with my children for, and then obviously then all of a sudden I wasn't living with them, and then we went on holiday. Me, my girlfriend, her two children, and my two children. We all went on holiday together,
Fantastic.
and I've mentioned this story before that me and my son were in the water throwing an American football to each other, and he threw the ball over my head, and I turned around and I started crying. And I thought to myself, I'd never ever thought I'd get this feeling back of being a parent with his children. I never thought I'd experience it again,
Yeah.
and I did. My son lives with me now full time, um, and my daughter comes three times a week, every week without fail. So
Wow.
it's there's that sort of that it's sort of the puzzle's completed type thing.
Yeah.
Everything's where it should be.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the high for me is just where I'm at now. Like you mentioned there, the beauty of the life and
Yeah.
the high is me. I am the high. That's how I feel about it now.
Love it. What is the emotion that you are chasing now? Smirking a little bit just because of this morning's live and the conversations we were having this morning. I thought we're going to turn this table on you at some point.
The emotion that I'm chasing,
A lot of
self
people
worth
are
maybe.
self worth.
Mm. Showing other people that I'm not a failure. Maybe that's something that I'm chasing. There's a lot inside of me that wants to prove something, wants to prove something to the people around me who spoke negative about me because I wasn't. I was a lot of the things that they said. I wasn't a nice person in my twenties. Wasn't the best husband, and things like this. And, there's always two sides to a story, which I don't need to go into.
Yeah.
All these things were something that were relative to me, but I've always known that I'm so much more. I've always known it. I always knew I was different to my friends growing up because I wasn't that typical type of person. I like to write stories when I was 15. That went out the window when I became 16, 17 because I
Yeah.
didn't want to look weak or something.
Yeah.
Um, I remember in primary school and high school myself and a friend of mine when I was in school, he was a Jehovah's Witness. Me and him used to we'd stay inside at dinner time sometimes and we'd write stories together and all
Yeah.
sorts of stuff. And I knew I was slightly different. Um, but all that, I suppressed all these things. I suppressed all these emotions to fit into a society that I never really belonged in anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so my girlfriend, she asked me a question not long ago, which was, you know, what is this version of Lee? And I said, this is the 15, 16-year-old version of Lee you're getting here now.
Yeah.
But obviously, as an adult, this is the real me. I've always been this person, but he
Yeah.
was suppressed in the dark. and I've brought him up to the surface now, and I'll always be this person. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I feel as though I've got a point to prove now. I've got a point to prove to myself, to my children, to my girlfriend, to the people that love me, but also to the people that don't believe in me and think that I'll always be the same. That's not happening. I'll be on a TEDx talk before I'm 50.
Love it. You'll be on a TEDx talk before you're 40, mate.
I
Just
hope so.
saying. Just saying. I do think so. And what I'm loving with you, Lee, is so I often when the iceberg for me is and has been central to counseling and business for me over the last 30 years. So it's my nature to listen for identity statements and values and beliefs, and I'm always listening for, is there a belief statement that is going to drag you down? Is there a limiting belief that's going to trip you up along the line? And there isn't. Um, and I listened to always believed I was different, and I love that because it allows so much growth and change and transformation and reaching new heights, being outside of the box, um, but taking it in your stride and just making it a norm for you. So I'm enjoying that phrase. Um, it's a very powerful thing. So well done, man. Well done. I gotta say that's it's quite big. Definitely a mind shift change for you over the last 2 years, though. Do you feel like you are re-educating? There was a book, The Re-Educating of. Eh, now the name's gone out of my head. Do you think it is a re-educating of Lee at the moment? Is that what you're doing? Going back into the 15-year-old Lee and allowing yourself a clean slate and let's start a new education process for the way forward.
For sure. I mean, one thing I say a lot of is the society these days has a tendency to, and when I say these words, I mean it across the board. We have a tendency to medicate and not educate, right?
Yes.
Um, a lot of people will live on medication their whole lives and depend on medication when sometimes they need it, sometimes they might not. I was on antidepressants for a long time and I came off them, struggled for a couple of months with my sleep. But the education part for me here now is the most important piece of self development that I have ever done, ever. Because the stuff that I've learned since August, September last year isn't a great deal in the grand scheme of things, but to me, it's huge. It's massive. I understand the process of a neuron now when cocaine is influxed into the brain. I would never have known these things 12 months ago. I know the process of a neuron in addiction. Come on. I mean, it's fantastic. Um, the neuro linguistics that I've been learning, and obviously learning from yourself. This iceberg method that I've really took on board over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Beforehand, it was something I'd only look at when me and you would speak. But then obviously, the more I'm looking at it, there's questions flying at it all over the place now. Every time I look at it, there's a new group of questions, a new group of answers, and my identity is forever improving. That's the most important thing that I look at now. Through the environment, behaviors, skills, values, my identity is constantly upgraded every single day. That's how I feel. That is genuinely how I feel. Um, and again, there's a lot more education to be done. I'm reading books now. Again, that's not something I've done since I was 15. I've read a book today on Eddie Jaku, who was a prisoner of war in Auschwitz, and
Yeah.
it's what a book. I had a
What a
little
book.
cry this afternoon reading it. Unbelievable.
Fantastic. Love that book.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah.
To
And
go through all of that and still be
education.
so positive. It's just, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's called. is it the happiest man alive, or the happiest man on earth?
Yeah,
And
happiest man on
just like my girlfriend, she read it yesterday. She read it in one day, and I've read it in 2 days. And it's just like, for again, it brings value to what I'm doing, because this man has been through so much pain, so much turmoil. I can't even comprehend what his life would ever look like, because they're not even treated like human beings. And this man showed love and had the ability to forgive, which is the most important part that I've took
it.
away from the book.
Yeah,
And it's just so empowering for me. And I absolutely love, John, where I am at the moment in my life, with the people in my life. My friends will always be my friends, and I'll always love them. But unfortunately for them and myself, I've got to leave people behind that I care for, because
yeah,
my purpose, my purpose now is to change the fucking world, mate. That's how I see it.
love it. I love it. The thing that really stands out about you for me, Lee, is in terms of the identity stuff. The regular mindset is I'm a recovering addict, and part of that narrative is the trauma dumping. You know, we had a little bit this morning in the live talking about the emotion stuff, and it literally, it's this recovery. Oh, I'm in this difficult situation. I just, yeah. You, I've not seen that in you at any time. When I hear you talk, it's about your growth, your development, about the beauty of life. How are you doing that? What do you attribute that difference where you're not saying, I'm a recovering addict, you're saying, I'm Lee? You got that even before we started talking about the iceberg. How are you doing that? How did you do that?
I think I just realised that it serves no purpose in my life to be that person. Because how long do I say those things for? Do I say it for 12 months? Does somebody send me a nice golden envelope through the letterbox that says it's okay, you can call yourself Lee again now? And and it was one of the biggest things that annoyed me, and it still does annoy me, is we generalize people to suit narrative of conversation. And it frustrates the hell out of me, because my life, as well as your life, as well as all these other people's as well as all these other people's lives, are far much more than a generalization to suit somebody's conversation, just so they can win a debate. And I won't stand for that. I'm not doing that. My
Yeah,
life is worth more than to be labeled into something for the sake of a number or a statistic or a graph to say, oh, these are the. I refuse to do it, and that's why I've never been to um, a 12 steps. Never. I
yeah,
never went to rehab. I went to see a psychologist a few times, but he didn't even look at me like I was a human being. So I done it myself, and unfortunately, by doing it myself, I've hurt the people in my life a little bit more than, or I've hurt the people in my life. That's the end of it.
yeah,
Um, Not a little bit more, but I done it by making constant mistakes. But every mistake was something, there's no failure, only feedback type thing.
yes,
Every time I made a mistake, I realized what I'd done wrong and I'd learned from it. And then obviously over the period of time, I made more and more mistakes to the point where the ultimatum was given.
yes,
But ever since that day, it was a case of, this is my decision. I don't have to suit narrative. I don't have to suit, well, you've only, even if I'd only been sober 3 weeks, I'm not a recovering addict. I'm
yeah,
me. I'm Lee.
yeah,
I don't have to call myself nothing for the sake of your conversation. My name is Lee, and it'll always be Lee. My name
yeah,
isn't recovering addict. I'm not Lee. I know I've got CPTSD. I know I have. I know I have. I don't need the diagnosis to tell me what happened to me when I was a kid. I was
yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah,
but these people who say, "Oh, I've got ADHD and I've got CPTSD and I'm a recovering addict," and this isn't me being negative towards anybody, but it serves no purpose in your life to give power to a definition or a label. It gives nothing. It actually takes strength off us. It takes our own power away from us and entraps us in this invisible cage
Yes.
of limiting beliefs, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's not the way that I want to live my life. I am certainly not a generalization or a label.
Yeah.
I'm a human being who who
Yeah.
who hurts and feels and loves, and that's where it comes from, I guess.
And to me, it sounds like that knowing that you were different is coming through again. You know, I think this is a belief that has stood you in good stead over the last year or two. So that's interesting. I find that
Maybe.
very. If you were to do the last 2 years over, is there something you would do different? Would you go about it different?
I'll be honest with you, John. I'm going to say no because if I did, I'd be a different person sat here speaking to you. I might not even be here sat speaking to you.
Yeah,
So the past is where it needs to be, and that's the only place it's ever going to be.
I
Um,
love it, buddy. I love it.
you know, it, I mean, going back to that book on Eddie Jacku, that
Yes.
he lost everything and everybody, and turned him into a fantastic human being. So I'm not going to sit there and say that if I could go back 20 years and change it, because that would be unfair to me. It'd be unfair to me children, to me girlfriend.
Yeah.
It'd be unfair to everybody who's in my life. So no, I wouldn't change a thing.
Beautiful. The future has changed for you though. It's looking very different for you. What is the
Yeah,
thing
I
that
mean,
excites you the most for the future?
can you say that again? Sorry, I interrupted you.
What is the thing that excites you the most about the picture of the future?
The thing that excites me the most is probably the thing that I feared the most, which is the unknown. Um, I think the fact that 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, all the way through COVID, where I was isolated on my own through COVID for months and months on my own, drinking, taking drugs, isolating. I lived in the family home at the time on my own, and I was a prisoner inside my own life because there was pictures everywhere of my history, pictures of my family, and
Yeah,
the fear for me was this is always going to be is this always going to be the way I'm going to live my life? That was always the fear for me. Now it's like I can't wait. Honest, I really honest. Like the next 12 months, and I'm not even going to say I think I know are going to change my life for in the best way possible. Obviously, the next 12 months will change your life because we're further down the road. But as
yeah,
in environment, skills, beliefs,
yeah,
maybe the beliefs. I think the beliefs are there. I think the beliefs are slowly. They've been solidified almost. But as far as environment, that's changed a lot. But it's going to change even better, even more.
yeah,
Skills. I mean, I'm only just opening this book on skills. People
yeah.
better watch this space because in a couple of years' time, I'm coming for the world. Honestly.
I love it. I love it. Never mind a couple of years, mate. You're going to do it in the process. Uh, if you were to give somebody advice now, they're looking at you. I know you do in the lives and that kind of thing. But uh, let's look at no, somebody looking to get out of it, change their lives, make a new way, make a new future for themselves. What would you say to them?
I mean, there's a few things, right? First of all, it's not weakness; it's strength. To be able to ask somebody for help certainly isn't weakness. Vulnerability is power beyond. Vulnerability is power in abundance. Vulnerability is unlimited power. That's how I look at it. It's unlimited. Um, so first of all, it's not weak to ask somebody for help.
Yeah,
I mentioned it yesterday. We all have a wound. We all have some form of pain. All of us. And I don't care. Every single person on this world has some form of pain. Unfortunately, a lot of these pains are born into a world which is extremely insecure, which is extremely volatile. It can be almost poison at times if you allow it to be.
Yeah.
And the way to change that outlook on life, that perception that we have that the world's doom and gloom, is by being vulnerable towards yourself. Looking in the mirror, and I think I mentioned it to you the other day, every time we hold the mirror up, there's a different face looking at us. Every single
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
It's down to us to sit with that mirror and understand what those faces are
Yeah.
and why those faces are looking back at us. And once we've done that, I promise, and I don't ever make promises. I promise the world will be a brighter place for you. I really do. I really, really do. Um,
Yeah.
and people underestimate what they can do in a day. Um, we can do so much work for ourselves in a day that can lead on to another positive day and another positive day. And it can be something as simple as waking up, making your bed, getting a shower, sitting down, having some nice food. That's it. That's day one. Day two,
Yeah.
you could add something else into it. Go for a walk with a dog, put some music on, have a dance, and again, one of the biggest pieces of information I've ever took on board is keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. I One of the
Yeah.
first podcasts I ever did with a guy from Dublin. His book was called Keep It Simple. And for me now, when the more difficult days come along, I just say to myself, keep it simple today. Best piece of advice I can give anybody in the world.
Love it. Tell us about the Zito Run podcast. Start
Yeah,
with the
so
name.
have I never told you where the name comes from?
No, you have, but it's a good
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, so the Zeta, I was looking for sort of slang words for mental health and addiction, and I came across this word, and I think it was on the Urban Dictionary or something on the internet, and it said Zito run. I thought that sounds cool. What's that mean? So it says the Zito run is to often travel to an undesirable location under the influence of drugs or mental health. And then in brackets, it says, let's do a Zito run to Las Vegas. And I was like, yeah, that's me. That's perfect, because
Love it.
if you were to give it analogy, obviously it's got the mental health and addiction aspect to it.
Yeah.
But also where it says you travel to an undesirable location
Yeah.
is something that I've done a lot of over the last 12 months internally. I've gone to places inside me where I didn't ever dream of going to. So yeah, that's where the Zito run comes from.
Love it.
I've done, I think I've done 32 episodes so far.
Yeah.
Met some fantastic people along the way, and like I've said to you before, the beauty of what I'm doing isn't the end goal. There is no finish line. There is no checkered flag. The
Yeah.
checkered flag is when they put me in the ground and put dirt over me. That's the checkered flag.
Yeah.
And the beauty is now in the life that I'm going to live, the things I'm going to experience, feel, learn, the people that I'm going to meet, like yourself, the
Yeah.
conversations that I'm going to have, the people that I'm going to help. That is the beauty of life. That is the pursuit of happiness. There's no other. Again, you'll know this just as well as I will. That when you're on your deathbed, you don't want to look at your bank account. You want to look at the people who are there in your life, right? The
Yeah.
people that you love.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that I've realised and something that I'm going to do forever. Yeah,
Love
that's
it.
the way I'm going to live my life.
Love it.
And yeah,
And the purpose
that's
of the
that's
Zito. Sorry, Lee. Carry on.
no, it's okay.
The purpose of the Zito Run podcast, Lee. Why did you start it? What are you hoping to get out of it, achieve it? The kind of people you bring in on there.
Well, the kind of people that I'm bringing on there. So I've had a couple of local psychologists. A friend of mine's a psychologist in the NHS in North Wales. He works in the local trauma clinic, which they're closing down next month. Probably shouldn't say that online, but I've said it now. um,
We'll hold it out until it happens.
yeah, I don't mind anyway. I haven't mentioned his name or her name, so nobody knows.
Yeah,
Again, so a lot of it has been people who've struggled with mental health, with loss, with grief, with addiction, with all sorts of mental health stories, powerful stories, similar to the one we're having now. Um, and I've met people from across the world, again, who I would never have met. And the purpose behind the podcast is the phrase that's underneath the logo is the power of conversation. Um, and that's what I want to show people is that if a lower class council estate boy like me can sit there and have these conversations, then anybody can do it because, again, like I've mentioned to you before, I'm a big dude. I'm 6'6", 20
yeah,
stone, covered in tattoos, as you can see, all over my body. And it's people would look at me and, people have said to me before, I didn't think you had anything wrong with you. I'm like, why? And they're like, well, just, you go to the gym a lot, you speak very confidently, you've got this aura about you. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just as broken as you are. Let's talk about it. It's the one of the best things people can do in life is find comfort in conversation.
yeah.
That's what I'm trying to show people, that it's okay to speak. It's okay to have these conversations, and that it's not weakness, it's strength.
Love it. And where can people find the Zeta Run podcast?
So it's all the episodes on YouTube. I can send you the link if you want. You could maybe pop it under whenever you put this out.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, they're all on YouTube. They're on Spotify as well. And obviously I'm on the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, things like that. They're all on there. It's just me. I do it all on my own. I do the equipments because, doing the face-to-face ones is a bit of a nightmare to set up. It takes me a good hour to get everything right. And then
yeah,
I've got
yeah,
nobody behind the cameras, so I've got to time it all myself, get up, make sure the screens are all done properly. And it's frustrating, but the conversation makes it all worth it, right? It's
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
seeing people's reactions once they've seen themselves on TV is beautiful, man.
yeah. What's next for Lee? What's the mountain you want to climb?
Next for me is, so, like I said to you, I'm losing my job in July. It's a very well paid job, but it's a job that I absolutely despise, even though, I could be good at it. I just choose not to be. I don't want to be good at it. It's not something that
Yeah,
enthralls me or fills me with passion or purpose. I just don't like it. But anyway, I'm losing my job. So I've already got another job. I've got the same type of job lined up just for now.
yeah,
Um, I applied for another job last week and I didn't get it. And this little voice in the back of my mind said, "It's a good job you didn't get that because now we can do what we actually want to do." Which is, I'm doing this level 7 master's
yes,
equivalent in psychology or positive psychology, trauma informed person. I want to do this as a full-time job. I want to do this as a career. One thing that was holding me back was my belief that I wasn't educated enough. I didn't have the skills necessary to do this job. But I know I have, and with somebody of your ability and your skill, who I really do, John. I'm not just saying it. I look up to you. I think you're a fantastic human being.
thank you, sir.
And this is what I want to do. I want to make a career out of it, and not just a career, a fucking successful one. One
Yeah,
where I can look back when I'm 65, 70 years of age, and people say, bloody hell, do you remember the stuff that he used to do? He's known, why not? He was known all over the world. He was known globally, or he was known all over the UK. That's what I want to do. I want to leave this big size 13 footprint in the sand one day, and people, leave a bit of a legacy. Why not? Why
abs-
aren't I allowed to say legacy? Why aren't I allowed?
absolutely. So just a bit of tongue in cheek as well. I know you ask people, or a couple of the podcasts were that dinner. Somebody from your family, somebody from history, and somebody else. Who would you have.
Oh,
Who would your guests be?
you're stealing me up, stealing my thunderous question at the end. Okay, I'd I'd have my granddad. His name was Brinley Evans, proper Welsh name. I'd have him. Now, I've thought about this question quite a lot because my grandmother was honestly, she's the queen of my heart, like my grandmother. But if we're talking conversation, I think I'd want her on that table just so I could see her face again. But if we were to sit round a dinner table, she wouldn't say a word. She'd barely speak. Um, so if I'm talking purely from a conversational point, it'd be my grandfather. It'd be Achilles, the warrior.
Yeah.
Um, Ancient history and ancient war is something that I really like. I've actually
Wow.
got the saying there tattooed on my wrist, which says there are no pacts between lions and men, which is something that Achilles said to Hector just before they had a fight.
Yep.
Um, Two more, I'd probably say Marcus Aurelius.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
obviously I've read the book Meditations. I've read that a
Yep.
couple of times. Really enjoy that book. I like philosophy. One more. Now, it's a bit of a difficult one. This it'd either be Mike Tyson, his
Wow.
mentor, Cus D'Amato. I
Yes.
think I'd be able to have some great conversation with him, or Ip Man.
Wow.
So Bruce Lee's mentor, Master Ip.
Yeah.
I think that there's.
Wow.
I mean, if I can't get wisdom out of them, then I'm
Do you
going
know
to
what I mean?
struggle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And if you were to pick an animal, Lee, think of an animal, any animal. What animal would you pick?
lion,
Three things you like about the lion.
strength, fatherhood, and the fact that they'll die on the shield.
Three things you don't like about the lion.
The fact that they'll wander, they leave their family. The fact that they'll die on their shield, and I don't like how they dominate areas because by doing so they also kill a lot of children, they kill a lot of cubs.
A bird. Pick a bird.
Bird. Oh. So my girlfriend thinks she was a pigeon in a past life. She's adamant that she was a pigeon. She's
That's interesting.
fantastic with animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, she read. I don't know why. She actually said that her daughter, when her daughter was very young, said the same thing to her, that she used to be a pigeon, um, and she'd never even told her. And when I say these things, I'm adamant. You know, I'm not joking. She's adamant
Yeah.
she was a pigeon.
Yeah.
Um, but if I was to pick a bird, not really massive into birds, but I'll go peregrine falcon.
Okay. And three things you like about it.
This is a difficult one because so the fact that it can see the world from above everybody else, it sees the world in a way that nobody else can see it. The fact that it's faster than everything else, and the fact that it can pick and choose to eat whatever it wants.
Yeah. Like it. Three things you don't like about it.
Again, the fact that it can pick and choose to eat whatever it wants. Spends a lot of time on its own. It's a loner, and that it'll probably die alone.
Very, very interesting. Lee, I've got a high regard for you, mate. I just, like I've said to you before, watching you on the podcasts, um, I feel like you are saying the right things, not only for your health, for your journey into the future, but the kinds of things, the kinds of advice that you are saying to the others around you that are, and you're creating a safe space for people to come in there and get that self-care question today. I think went to miss in terms of the answers, and I think one of the things I just wanted to say was you were creating a space there for that self-care, right? Because it's a place that you can just come there and fill your cup. And I really admire the way you are doing this, with with both a sense of selflessness and a sense of creating a reputation and a reliability It really is a spectacular energy, I've got to say. Thank you for
Thank you, mate.
doing this.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this interview. We are going to do another one. I'm telling you now already, we're going to do another one because I want to dive a bit deeper into some of the things that we've spoken to today. So thank you very, very much for this opportunity, mate. I really appreciate that. Something you
Yeah,
want to
and I'm the same.
something you want to leave us with? A pearl of wisdom, a pearl of Lee Evans' wisdom.
If I can honestly say one thing, and I only learned it today, and I've written it down. It's from that book, Eddie Jacquo's book. It's a quote from his book, and it says he's talking about when he wanted to end his life, and he had a friend. I think his friend's name was Kurt, and they're sat staring at the electric fence. And over the last couple of weeks, a lot of people had been just walking into the electric fence and taking their own lives.
Yeah.
And he said to his friend Kurt, "Let's just do it. Let's take our lives now, so they can't take our lives tomorrow." And he said, "What is the point living only to suffer tomorrow?" But Kurt refused. He would not let me go to the wire. And then he said that was one of the most important things he ever learned, was Kurt being his friend and being there for him and keeping him alive by feeding him scraps of food each day. And he said, "The most important thing I have ever learned, the greatest thing you will ever do, is be loved by another person." And it means there's a few ways that I can look at that. Is the analogy of walking into a barbed wire fence. If you look at that socially and in reality now, here and now, there's a lot of people taking their lives. There's a lot of people dying from mental health, drug abuse, suicide. A lot of people that I know, probably a lot of people that you know as well, John. I don't know that about you, but I'd imagine so. And the fact is, we spend a lot of the time on our own in the dark without feeling loved. And it's not because the people in your life don't necessarily not love you, if you understand what I'm saying. The
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, we just haven't met the people yet who love us.
Yeah.
And if we're willing to put the work in, and if we're willing to just let that light creep in through the blinds slightly in the morning, love will come through with it as well. And that for me is the journey. This is love. What we're doing here is love. What I'm doing with my family is love. Friendships, all these things. It's without love, there's nothing but coldness and cold, dark shards of nothing. And it breaks my heart to know that there's people in this world who feel as though they have none. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Love it. Love it. You are the epitome of the phoenix rising from the ashes uh, and creating an extraordinary story along the way, mate. I wish you the absolute best of luck, and I'm really, really happy and honoured to be a part of that journey. Looking forward,
I am
looking
so
forward to watching you just reach new heights, mate. There's no doubt.
appreciate you, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That's him.
Job done.
Hit stop here.